collaborating with Jerovam. There's the family, and there's those that collaborated with him. So here, let's see when it's going to be, as opposed to the punishment of the collaborators of Jerovam. When will that be? We'll see the three different stages. First, it's true, when Mrs. Jerovam arrives home, Pasuk Yud Gimel, after the child dies. By the way, notice how we're reading now verse 13, that this child was special. He's apparently the only one that deserves burial, as it says. Let's read it. V'safdula chol Yisrael. He was famous. Eulogies all over the place. V'kavru oto. He merited burial. What's the novelty? Ki ze levado yavo l'Ravam. As far as the house of Jerovam is concerned, only he and he only deserves burial. Why? Yan, follow the reading if you can. Yan nimtzavo devar tov el Adonai Elohei Yisrael beveit Jerovam. There was something good in this son. What was it? So Chazal explained, he went up against his father's instructions. We all know and have learned that Jerovam put up either roadblocks or soldiers on the road between the Shomron, Beit El, Yerushalayim, preventing people to go to Yerushalayim. They would not get to the Beit HaMikdash. Who decided to undermine this plan? Who decided to rebel and become a rebel? This son. Why? Because he realized and understood that the most important thing to do is go to be Yerushalayim, be united with Yerushalayim. And therefore, he nullified the guard duty that Jerovam had put up a guard post somewhere blocking people to go to Yerushalayim. And therefore, he himself would go up to Yerushalayim. And therefore, he's righteous. And if he's righteous, even though now he's dying, he gets burial. Where? In the family burial. That's regarding the house of Jerovam. So this child, Aviyah, gets that. By the way, notice the name. What's his name? Aviyah. If we skip to the end of the chapter, who is the successor of Jerovam? Pasuk Kaf, verse 20, do you see it? Nadav. Can you put two and two together? What do you associate this with? Aviyah and Nadav. Aaron's children. Their names were Nadav and Avihu. Aviyah is like Avihu. Why do you think Jerovam called some of his kids like the sons of Aaron?
Because he saw himself as a man.
You don't have to be a bona fide Kohen to serve Hashem in the shrine that I built in Beit El and in Dan. So, we're all equal. We all have the equal Kedusha. And he takes the notion that I will call my kids like the names of Aaron. I think I saw that in the Dat Mikra series. Let's continue. And now, about what is happening. Pasuk Yudalad, verse 14. Veikim Adonai lo melech al Yisrael asher yachrit et Beit Yerovam ze hayom umeh gam ata. Well, the punishment will be that there will be a successor, not necessarily now. There will be a melech, and what will he do? He will destroy the children, the grandchildren, anyone related to Jerovam. Okay? In other words, the people that in the future will be born to Jerovam, to his children, they will be erased. Who? By a king. Are we told when? No. We're not told when. Obviously, it's the son. It's not the son that's going to do it, as we're going to learn. That's far as Beit Yerovam. When will it happen? It'll happen in the future. What about what's happening in the country? Okay, as far as those that collaborated with Jerovam over the years, we're now going to see three stages here, gentlemen. Stage 1, Pasuk 15, Vika Hashem et Yisrael. Yisrael here meaning those that cooperated with the ideas, the administration, the different laws, reformist, new calendar, the shrine that turns into idolatry. What will God do in the future? It's not now. Vikasha mitzvah, just like what? Kasher yanura kaneh b'mayim. When you put reeds into water, let's say they are enrooted in the water, as the current moves to the right, to the left, so too is there movement of the reeds. But what is not happening? It's not going to be uprooted. So here we have a prophecy that will happen in the future, which will come into fruition by Chazael, the king of Aram. Would it be about 130 years from now? That we're not here talking about night destruction and not uprooting. They're going to be hit. They're going to be punished. That's stage number 1 for those that collaborated with Jerovam. Stage number 2, I'm sorry. There are some that say Vika is punishment. They're going to be struck. There's going to be affliction. And stage number 2, there are those that explain that they're going to be moving from place to place. But it doesn't mean that they're going to be exiled. What will be stage number 3? Venatash et Yisrael me'al adama azot atova azot asher natan lavotayim v'zeiram, they'll be dispersed me'ever lenahar. Yan, why? Because asher asu et asherehem machisim et Hashem. Here, stage 3 is to be uprooted, to be dispersed in the galut. So we see here 3 different stages of punishment for those that have collaborated with Jerovam. All this will happen in the future. They'll be hit, afflicted by others from outside Eretz Yisrael, but they will not be destroyed, and that will happen by Chazael, the king of Aram, attacking in the Shomron. Number 2, they're going to be moving from place to place, but they're not going to be uprooted yet. And number 3, and that is, they will be what? Exile. They'll be uprooted from the land, and that'll be done by the king of Ashur, by Pekach ben Remaliah, as the Malbim explains, and then dispersed on the other side of the river, and that'll be done in the time when we have a prophet by the name of Hosea. And then Sancheriv, the king of Ashur, came in and dispersed them, population transfer, as we say. So we can summarize and say here, there's a big punishment coming up over the next century and a half, that it all being done to Jerovam and his collaborators, and that will help destroy the people that collaborated with him. Question?
What were the people like 143 years after? Were they bad?
It was terrible. The situation was terrible. Idolatry. Look, even in Yerovam's time, there is no sense of morality. You can lie, you can hide your identity, you can do these things. Once we're not upright and we don't have honesty, meaning you're thinking about yourself, is most prominent. Then you can do adultery and murder and robbing and doing the worst things. Why? Because you don't care about the klal. All you care about is yourself. Anochi ani. Ken Rav heard this from Rav. This very important point on Rav Kook's writings from Rav Kashtiel. When you have no honesty, basic decency, and you don't think only about yourself. That's what Jerovam is thinking right now. And people like him. What will prevent you from swapping wives? What will prevent you from murder? If it's in order for you to proceed in life and to go forward, then you have no limitations. Here, we're seeing things going down morally, stage after stage, and therefore, the Shomron will be the first to exile, after the 2.5 tribes on the other side are exiled. So what?
Bakala, at the beginning you said that it's the people who collaborated.
Yes.
Okay, so that's probably a handful, maybe 10%.
No, you're right, but the others are collaborating with their dishonesty. In other words, things are just getting worse and worse and worse. And when you don't put things into check, and yesterday we studied about the responsibility even of Achia living in Shiloh, that he didn't put things into check. So we see a spiritual decline happening, and things just go down and down. And, well, if you can do it, I can do it also. There are no people making, dugmot ishiyot, who is a great example. Situation will be so bad that on every hilltop, I want to make serving God convenient. Why should I go to Beit El and Dan? I'll build an altar on this mountaintop, and on that mountaintop. That's what things are going to happen. Do you follow? If we continue from Pasuk Tet Zayin, verse 16, gentlemen, I wanted to just say something. Look at this. I'm going to leave that on that Gemara. Let's go on. Tet Zayin. V'yitenet Yisrael. God will deliver Israel. Israel being this punishment in the Shomron. Why? Biglal chatot Yerovam asher chata. Here it's written clearly. Vasher echti et Yisrael. Not only did he sin, but he led others to sin. This was the point we said yesterday. We brought in the name of Chazal and Pirkei Avot, and then we brought the Rambam. Why does Hashem not assign prophets to go and check Yerovam decades earlier? Answer: because he will suffer more. Why? Because he's causing others to sin. So someone who's a chotei and a machti, his situation is really bad. Right? The doors of tshuva are locked in front of him. He will not be able to do this. And I see it's brought here in the Dat Mikra series that he is the first in all of the Tanakh, Yerovam. He's very special. To be considered someone that is not only a sinner, but he's also a machti. He causes others to sins. Do you know what we call that? Especially talking about Avodah Zarah, we call that mesit umediach. Someone who entices others, someone that tries to influence others to sin. That's a terrible sin. Mesit umediach. There's so many difficult laws regarding that. And therefore, when you have a majority of a city that's doing that, what is that city called? Ir nidachat. It's called an ir nidachat. Here, the Tanakh is telling us that Yerovam is causing others to sin, and therefore he has the responsibility on his neck about the things that people are sinning. And that's brought in the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot. Okay, gentlemen, what happens after the passing away of Aviyah ben Yerovam? Pasuk Yud Zayin, verse 17, let's read it. Vatakom eshet Yerovam, vatelech vatavo Tirtzata. The town called Tirtza, which is today a name of a what? A yeshuv, maybe. What else? It's a woman's name, first of all, right? And if you look up Chumash Bamidbar, you'll find the name Tirtza by.
Is it one of the daughters?
That's it. Speaking to the microphone.
One
of the was it 5 daughters of Tzlafchad? Machala, Noah, Chogla, Tirtza, Milka, right? And is it one of the fond names of the land of Israel? Tirtza, I think is it Shir HaShirim? I'm not a Shir HaShirim reader. Yeah, one of the nicknames, is it not?
The land of Israel?
Is it not, Tirtza? I think so. When we travel to the center of the Shomron, let's say Shechem is like the center of the Shomron, right? From there, I can go west to what? Kfar Saba? West Shechem parallel to Kfar Saba? Is it? Let's say Shechem is Chadera? Maybe Chadera. Let's say Shechem is parallel to Chadera if I go west. If I go down east, I go straight down to the middle of the Jordan Valley. If I go north, I'm going to Jenin and Afula. If I go south, I'm going to Shiloh and Beit El. It's very much center as far as north, south, east, and west. Okay? Some say that the capital or the palace of Yerovam was in the town here called Tirtza. By the way, the shoresh of the name Tirtza is Ratzon, will. That's the land of Israel, the land of will, the land of Hashem.
It's also the name of Israel's only women's prison.
Okay, that's very important to know. It's very important to know. Now, she's basically going home. Why is she going home? Because she was commanded by the prophet. What did the prophet say? Achia, kumi lechi leveitech. Okay, she didn't say one word. Maybe she's in total shock right now that she heard the terrible news that her son is dying, but she has to do the shlichut and go home. So after she goes where Jerovam was, and the kid passes away and the funeral happens, she's now going to her home. That's apparently her home. Apparently Jerovam was there temporarily, wherever they were beforehand. Throughout external books that we have on the Shomron, the capital of the kings of Israel was known to be in this area of Tirzah. According to the study made by the research team of the Mossad Rav Kook here in this series called Dat Mikra, right? You've seen the series before? I'm sure you have. No, right? Of all the Chumash and all the Tanakh, the Mossad Rav Kook has placed scholars.
Which commentary is it?
It's from the Mossad Rav Kook. No, it's a collection of anything and everything, but it's pshat and it's scientific. Nonetheless, they think what? Of everything, of all the books. Has commentary there. The board, whoever the board is selected scholars are still there. Yehuda Kiel is one of the great scholars of Tanakh in this past generation.
Impressive building.
Of course. You'll go. How what?
How many books? It's a big series.
For everything, as big as the Tanakh is, on each Sefer. I'll welcome you just to go window shopping on Passover. Right after Passover, there's 1 week of sales where 30 to 50% off. For an entire week, they put out Seferim on everything. Talmud, Rishonim, and Achronim, and everything they have. It's like walking to a big supermarket. People walk in and they have agalot, literally. That's the time to. Yeah, it's been growing now the last few years. A wonderful sale. It's the week right after Passover, just before we start the new semester. It's one just to go in if you're not buying, just to see. It's amazing. And the Haredi world coming by the throngs. They're buying Rishonim and Achronim on the Gemara and other things. It's a big Kiddush Hashem. Mossad Rav Kook, they're going in and buying all. And this is the insignia, right, at the entrance to the city. You see that at the building. Nonetheless, they say that on the road to Tubas, between Shechem and Tubas, that's the area of Tirzah. Tubas is when you get to Meshedmot Mecholah, on the Jordanian Valley Road, and you turn to go up west a few kilometers in is Tubas from Shedmon on the Jordan Valley Road. So Tubas, they say maybe that could be the area in between Shechem and Tubas is the area of it. By the way, when you go to Elon Moreh, okay, which is recorded in the Chumash, first place that Avram Avinu stopped off, and you climb Jabal Kabir, that tall mountain inside Elon Moreh, and you look down, that Nachal that brings rainwater going down east because it goes down in altitude, that is called Nachal Tirzah. That's called Nachal Tirzah, named after here. Okay, so that's important geography to know about the land of Israel and the Shomron kingdom. So she's coming home, and this is where it's happening. This is where it's happening. In other words, we were told what will happen. I made a mistake if I explained that it happened already. I meant to say now it's about to happen. She comes home. I made a mistake. She wasn't. The kid didn't die elsewhere. V'takom eshet Yerovam v'telech v'tovot tirtzata hiba'a b'saf habayit. Boom. V'nar met. V'yikberu oto yisbedu lo. He's buried. He's eulogized. Kol Yisrael. He's famous. He's the son of the king. Kidvar Hashem asher diber b'yad avdo Achio Navi. Everything happens according to per the prophecy of Achia. Pasuk Kitet, verse 19. Now, here is the Chatima, the sealing off of the kingdom of Jerovam. V'yeter divrei Yerovam. You want to hear about other events? I'll tell you. Asher nilcham, that he fought wars. Vasher malach, and decisions he made that as a king. Hinam ktuvim. They're recorded. Where? I'll say for divrei Yamim. In the book of Chronicles. Which one? Lemalchei Yisrael. Okay, there's a book called Divrei Yamim of Malchei Yisrael. This is a book of sources that, according to estimation, maybe the secretaries of the kings wrote down the events. We're not exactly told who wrote them. So too Shlomo Melech. No. So too, I'm saying the secretaries of the kings. They were, what were they called? A mazkir. They would write events. So they were called sofrim. They're called scribes. So too, we saw the concept divrei hayamim of Malchei Yehuda, like Shlomo Melech. Now, a lot of things apparently were written there. And today, how many of these books do we have? Nothing.
Wait, what? Where's the Sefer?
That's not Jerovam. He's not referring to Jerovam. This is
literally what he says.
it says Jerovam
Yeah.
to the kings. There were special recorded books that through history got lost, and apparently a lot of great events that happened to the king and wars and other things were recorded by these scribes. Now the Navi was not asked to write those events. Why not? Because Hashem didn't tell him to write it down. Whatever we'll have, the Gemara says in Menachem Megillah, page 14, Nivuah shetzricha lidorot nichtava, Nivuah shelo tzricha lidorot lo nichtava. Whatever will have a value for future generations, that was recorded by the prophet. God put it down. But what will not have any ramification, influence, value, moral values for the Jewish people in the future was not recorded. It's not a book of history. The Divrei Hayamim of Malchei Yehuda and Malchei Yisrael is a book of history, absolutely. Gentlemen, Pasuk verse 20, Vayimim Hashem Malach Yerovam 22 shana, Vayishkav im avotav, Vayimloch Nadav beno tachtav. What do you notice about Yerovam? Is he buried in his place? Where is he buried?
Like that, he's from Ephraim, somewhere in Ephraim area, like where some told.
That's just a euphemism. He died.
Doesn't say where he's buried.
So right. So we want to say, do you remember? What are we hinting to? What was the nevuah of the prophet from Judah? What will happen to these bones and the bones of some of his collaborators? Are going to be burnt. And he will not be buried. So therefore, when it states that he passes away, it doesn't say that he was buried in his family burial site. Why? Because of the prophecy that doesn't deserve it. And the only one that does deserve it is his son, Aviyah. So it only says, Vayishkav im avotav. What it doesn't have to mean, though, it doesn't mean that he was buried in his burial place, obviously.
Because they put the bones to dry out for you, and then they bury it. So maybe.
But the point is, it doesn't say that he was buried with his family. Why? Because he's suffering. He suffered. Okay, so that's what we see based upon the former prophecies. Who's now the new? Who's the new ruler? Nadav. Okay, which, like we said, reminds us of Nadav and Avihu. Nadav is the second son apparently here. We really don't know who was the oldest son, but that's not irrelevant for these matters. So here, before we go to Rechavam, we're basically summing up here. That's it. The career of Yerovam is ended on a very negative note, of course. Yerovam feared for his life, feared for his future. He knew that he's not going to be king forever. He may have known that he's supposed to mend things together and live as one nation under the ruling of God, and that at some time along the new future history, we're supposed to return to become one kingdom. But he decided to do the opposite, to disconnect Israel from the Beit HaMikdash in Yerushalayim, the same Beit HaMikdash that when Shlomo Melech inaugurated the Beit HaMikdash, there was a great Gilui Shechina, a revelation of divinity, just like it happened in the Mishkan, we saw. And unfortunately, what Mr. Yerovam did is he led people to be more and more estranged from Torah and mitzvot, making new reforms, new calendars, new laws, and eventually the same place that he meant for good, to serve God, eventually turns into a place of idolatry, and therefore Yerovam is not only a sinner, but he is causing others to sin. He's a machti at Yisrael, and for that, he's doomsday. He's going to go to Gehenna, as we know. And as we saw now in the end of the chapter, in the end of the words of the prophet, decreed on his household is to be wiped out, to be destroyed forever. No one will remain alive. They're going to be getting punishment. And that's a sad ending. And B'ezrat Hashem, our next show will deal with Rechavam ben Shlomo.